Hello, I am Jennifer Malone and I am a cybersecurity consultant. Today we will be talking about the threats in 2024 against what I call the red triangle in cyberspace. What's that? Sometimes I like to speak in metaphors. There's a red triangle in the Pacific Ocean in Northern California. It is known for great white shark attacks on humans, and that's because large populations of marine mammals inhabit the area. Unfortunately, sometimes the great white sharks mistakenly sample the less tasty humans in the water who are near their preferred prey. So what does this have to do with cybersecurity? Well, there's a red triangle in cyberspace as well. And the vertices of the cyber red triangle are email, the internet, and user endpoints. And then you have the human users in the middle of the triangle because they are oftentimes in the loop. This area is dangerous, and that's because the malicious actors prowling offshore like to sneak in from the open internet and attack the human users who are riding their endpoints, surfing the web, and swimming in emails. Once the malicious actors have taken some bytes from the user endpoints, for example, they will cruise over to the juicier servers and databases and really chomp down on them because that's where the premium data resides. The cyber red triangle: email, internet, and the user endpoint, which includes servers. This is where the attackers like to penetrate. So what are the actual threats in the wild? As I said in 2023, it makes sense to prepare for the threats that are pertinent to your environment and are likely to happen. For example, in the northeastern U.S., people prepare for snowstorms, but not volcanic eruptions. Of course, things can change and you would have to adapt. Before we enter the cyber red triangle, let's talk about this year's cyber threats, courtesy of Verizon's 2024 Data Breach Investigations Report, or DBIR. The report was publicly released in May of 2024. I referenced the 2023 version in my presentation last year, which I'll use as a baseline for this year. The sources include many organizations from various sizes and verticals, law enforcement, and government. What's new for this year is that there were additional data contributors who were documenting mandatory breach disclosures. As a result, the number of breaches has doubled, 10,626 this year. We'll discuss some key takeaway from this year's report so we can all understand the current threat landscape. By the way, I'm not just copying and pasting Verizon report contents into this slide deck. Oh no. I am slicing and dicing the data, showing some highlights, and doing some of my own interpretation and analysis of this fabulous finished intelligence product from Verizon. Breaches. How are they getting in? Last year, it was stolen credentials. And this year, it was vulnerability. Phishing is steady as she goes. Either way, these three ways in are tried and true. Let's go a bit deeper. Select key enumerations and breaches. 68% of the breaches involve the human element, with people being involved through error, use of stolen credentials, and social engineering. It was 74% last year, but last year's included privilege misuse, and Verizon removed it this year and put it in its own category. Most breaches involved external actors, but internal actors' breaches went up from 19% to 35%. Realize, though, that 73% of these internal breaches were due to miscellaneous errors. What does that mean? Sending information to the wrong people and misconfigurations, for example. Ransomware isn't going anywhere anytime soon, but for this year there has been more extortion, meaning rather than encrypting the data as is done in standard ransomware attacks, the threat actor will tell the victim that they will publish their data out in the open if they don't pay them. Stolen credential attacks are still present this year, but third-party attacks were up significantly this year. Let's take a look at how the threat actors are getting in and what the vectors are. This is new from Verizon in 2024. What I see in this chart is this: stolen credentials, phishing, and vulnerability exploitation. No surprises there, because that's one of the first things I mentioned 2 slides ago. These were prolific in 2023 and in 2024. But now, take a look at the vectors. You have web applications, email, desktop sharing software, and VPN software. There's nothing really new about web applications and email, but the desktop sharing software and VPN software are particularly noteworthy. The primary motivation for attacks continues to be financially driven in the 90-something%, just like last year. The secondary motivation for attacks is espionage, up just a couple percent from last year at 7%. Then you've got organized crime as the top threat actor performer, checking in at over 60% of the breaches, down just a bit from last year. Next up, you've got the end user at 26%, up from 11%, mostly through involvement with misdelivery errors. Then there's state-sponsored actors, below 10% of the breaches, like last year. And unlike organized crime, they are the ones who are motivated by espionage as opposed to financial gain. Top action varieties and breaches. Last year, it was the use of stolen credentials at 49%. That went down this year to 24%. This year, ransomware alone is 23%. Backdoors, or C2, or pretexting, or phishing, are each between 10 to 20%. Then you've got exploitation of vulnerabilities at 10%, and extortion is 9%. So if you were to combine ransomware and extortion, then this combination would be 32% and would top this chart. Why combine the two? Well, ransomware traditionally holds the data hostage, and the bad actor will provide the key to decrypt the data if the victim pays. So that would be 23% of the breaches. But a change in tactics involves the bad actor threatening to publicize the victim's data if they don't pay. So the bad actor won't encrypt the data because they know many organizations nowadays have backups of the data, and then they refuse to pay the ransom. So this type of extortion is 9% of the breaches. So technically, ransomware is extortion as well. So if you add up the two, then it is 32% of the breaches shown in the top line here. Let's talk about social engineering. Social engineering accounts for 17% of the breaches in 2023 and almost 30% in 2024. In 2024, social engineering incidents involve pretexting, phishing, and extortion, in that order. Got some bad news, though. Did you know that on the average, the time it takes to click a phishing email and to enter the requested data takes about 49 seconds total? That's really fast. People are moving way too fast. But there is some good news. More people are reporting phishing emails, and that's about 20%. So the top vector is over email, as opposed to web applications, phone, IM, or SMS. But with respect to pretexting, business email compromise, or BEC, is holding steady, just like last year. According to Verizon, collaborating with law enforcement can potentially help recoup some of the losses from business email compromise. So who do you call if you have an instrument from law enforcement? Well, if you're a member of InfraGard, you can contact the Private Sector Coordinator, or PSC, which is the InfraGard Coordinator. The PSC is a one-stop shop. They will route you to the right person. So in 2024, as part of the actions taken by bad actors with social engineering, it's not just about malware and hacking people. It's about hacking servers. Now that is a top action. Let's take on diving into third party. Third party involves partner infrastructure. It also can include direct or indirect software supply chain issues, and that includes vulnerabilities, which are really big this year. So third party accounts for 15% of the breaches in 24, up 68% from last year. That's a huge jump. The top actions are exploiting vulnerabilities, followed by backdoor/C2, extortion, and stolen credentials. On to vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities were hot this year in 2024, even in third party. Take a look at these stats below. It takes forever to remediate vulnerabilities after the patch is released. Yes, there is a lot involved when dealing with production systems and having an impact on the business and a lot of complex testing going on. It's totally understandable. But the bad news is that the threat actors are beating us to the punch before we even get a chance to fix the vulnerabilities. Just a few words about incidents. Incidents are typically less severe than breaches. So distributed denial of service, or DDoS, and ransomware were the top action varieties in incidents as opposed to breaches. The top action vectors were web applications and email. The summary analysis. Wow, that was a mouthful. Lots to digest here. But let's just summarize it here in just one slide that I put together. So we've got the high notes from 2023 in blue up at the top. And then we've got the high notes with the vectors, which were new in 2024, in green. So green is 2024. And then on the right side in red, we have what I refer to as the steady state. I'm not showing anything new in this slide here. It's just a summary, one-stop shopping slide for what we've been talking about up till this point. So you can see the high notes from 2023, 2024, and steady state from both years and just in general. So what do we do about all the threats that we just talked about? Well, you can build or strengthen your cyber program to address the current threats. And you can get that threat information from a lot of sources. You can get it from Verizon, you can get it from other sources. It's good to cross-check and see how the sources compare. But I didn't do that in this presentation. I just went by Verizon. So that's the top priority for now. And you can commit to other projects later on to add defense in depth. Let's come back to the cyber red triangle for a moment here. So what I've done here is I show the red triangle, and I've parsed out the current 2024 threats, which were on that last slide in the summary. So I've parsed them out to the appropriate areas of the cyber red triangle, to the vertices and to the human in the middle. So there is some overlap and there's some repeats because it applies to different vertices, same threats, but that's okay. It helps to organize the findings and start a plan of attack. So what's the plan for addressing the threats? Well, let's leave that to a presentation for another time. Stay tuned, and thank you.